Hey guys, welcome back to this Python for Beginners tutorial series. In this video, we will talk about data types and operations in Python. Alright, let's get started. So first, we will talk about the four main data types in Python. And those are integers, and we can represent those using int. Then we have floats, and then we have strings, and we can use str for that. And lastly, we have booleans. So first, integers are just numbers that can be either positive or negative. So basically you have 0, 1, 5, negative 6, 42, or 76, or even negative 400. And these would be all valid integers. And then we have floats. And floats are anything that have a decimal point. So you could say 4.0 or 4.325 or 5.0 or negative 3.6 or 0.0, and these would be all floats in Python. So next we have strings, and strings are basically anything that are in quotation marks. So you could say Kevin or cats or I love Python. Yeah, so those can all be strings. And for strings, you can also use single quotes instead of double quotes. So you can say Kevin, cats, or I love Python in single quotes, and that would represent the same value. Alright, so for strings, you could also have integers inside of strings, and those would be strings as long as they are in the quotes. So you could have 5, or you could have 0, or you could have, for example, 5.3, and yeah, so you guys get the point. Those are all strings. And lastly, for booleans. So booleans can have the value of either true or false. And those are the only two values for booleans. And notice that for these values, we have to use capital letters. So for true, we have to use capital T, and for false, we have to use capital F. And yeah, so that's basically the four main data types in Python. And now we will move on to some basic operations we can do with integers and floats. Alright, so the operations we could use are addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. We can also have integer division, and we have the modulus operator, which I will explain later on. So for addition, it's just like how it works in math, right? So you could have 5 plus 3, and that would be equal to 8, right? Or you could have negative 2 plus 4, and that would be equal to 2, right? So yeah, it's pretty simple. And for subtraction, it's the same thing. So you could have 5 minus 2, and that would be equal to 3. And yeah, same for multiplication. So 2 times 3 equals to 6. Sorry. Equals to 6. Yeah, same for division. So 4 divided by 2 equals to 2. Or you could have a number that doesn't divide perfectly. So you could have 1 divided by 2 equals to 0.5. Now that in division, you notice that that it will output the decimal that goes after. But in integer division, that doesn't happen. So if you say 1 divided by 2 in integer division, it would just output 0. So basically how it works, it's how many times is this number go into this number, and since 2 goes into 1 0 times, it outputs 0. And for example, so you could have 5 divided by 2, and that would give you 2, right? Because 2 goes into 5 2 times, so it would output 2, and it doesn't care about the remainder. Alright, so lastly we have the modulus operator, and what it basically does is that it returns the remainder after dividing the numbers. So basically we could have 2 divided by 1, and that would output 0 because 1 goes into 2 2 times and the remainder is 0. And another example would be 6 modulus 4, and that would give you 1, right? Because 4 goes into 6 1 time, so it outputs 1. Yeah, so basically that's how modulus works. Oh, and also forgot one more, and that is exponents. So for exponents, you would use 2 multiplication signs, and what you would do is 2 multiplication signs, and then for example 3, and that would output 8, right? So 2 to the power 3 is equal to 8. And just like math, you can use multiple operations, and for example I'll just print these out. So you could say 2 plus 3 minus 5 times 7. Alright, and let's see what we get. So yeah, see, we get negative 30, right? And also you could assign these values to variables. So let's say x equals to 3, and say y equals to 5, and let's print out what happens when we add x to y. So if we run this, so yeah, we get 8 because 3 plus 5 equals to 8. And we could change this by adding some more numbers, and now 8 plus 4 plus 5 equals to 17. So yeah, that all works. And now just for integers, these operations all work for floats. So if we change this to 3.9 and 5.1, and when we add these together, we should get 9. So yeah, see, we get 9. And we get 9.0 because when we add 2 floats, we return a float. Alright, and now let's see what happens if we add an integer to a float. So we could have 3.0 and 5, right? And when we add x to y and we print that out, and we will get 8.0. So when we add integers to floats, it will automatically turn them all into floats. And that's the same for example, multiplication, division, so yeah, see, and subtraction. Alright, and lastly, I will show you some things that you can do with strings. So for strings, you can do something called string concatenation. And simply what that does is that it joins or adds the strings together. So I'll show you. For example, you could print one string that says Kevin, and you could use the add sign, and then you could say, for example, loves Python. And when you run this, see, we get Kevin loves Python. And now notice that we don't have any space between these two words right here. So when we add 2 strings, it just does literally what it does. So there's no space in between these 2 strings. So if we want a space, we're gonna have to type it in there. So we'll add a space after Kevin, and now when we print it, see, now we get a space between Kevin and loves. And also you can store strings first in variables and then add them. For example, you could say string 1 equals to hello, and string 2 equals to Kevin. And when you add them, so print string 1 plus string 2, See, we get hello Kevin. And again, if you want a space, we're going to have to add a space. And yeah, so that's basically string concatenation. And just one more thing, you can't add integers to strings. So if you add string 1, for example, when we add 2 to that, see, we get an error because we can only concatenate strings to strings and not integers to strings. They have to be the same data type. So that's basically it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this and see you next time. Bye.